Level up your life with these 11 Stoic strategies. Life felt like a constant storm of notifications, deadlines, and anxieties. I was reacting to everything, but in control of nothing. Have you ever felt that? That feeling of being pulled in a dozen different directions at once, where your focus is shattered and your energy is just bleeding out from 1,000 tiny cuts. I was living in a state of chronic overwhelm, completely adrift in a sea of my own responsibilities. I was losing sight of what actually mattered, and my days were becoming a blur of stress. I knew something had to give. I didn't want to just cope. I wanted to be in command. That's when I rediscovered the ancient philosophy of the Stoics, not as some dusty relic, but as a practical, time-tested operating system for the mind. So, I decided to try something radical. For one full week, I would immerse myself in 11 of their core strategies to see if I could reclaim some control. What started as just a simple experiment ended up completely transforming my mindset. This wasn't about becoming a robot, it was about becoming resilient. And today, I'm going to walk you through every single strategy, how I used it, and the difference it made. The Morning Citadel 1-0. Premeditation of evils. The very first strategy kicked in the moment my alarm went off. Before the world could throw its usual chaos at me, I needed to build a fortress in my mind. The Stoics had a name for this, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Now, it sounds grim, I know, but it's actually an incredibly optimistic tool. Instead of forcing some kind of blind positivity, I would take just 5 minutes to sit in silence and visualize what could go wrong during the day. A tough conversation, an unexpected deadline, a surprise bill. I'd play out these scenarios in my head, not to wallow in them, but to prepare for them. As the great Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect. Rehearse them in your mind. Exile, torture, war, shipwreck." My imagined shipwrecks were a bit more modern. A client complaint, maybe a flat tire, but the principle is exactly the same. By anticipating friction, I was stripping it of its power to shock and derail me. The first day felt weird, almost counterintuitive, but by day 3, something shifted. When a minor problem did pop up, there was no jolt of panic. My mind just went, yes, I've already thought about this. I'm ready. It's like a fire drill for your soul. You practice so that when the real alarm bells ring, you move with purpose, not panic. The first victory: make yourself a priority. That morning fortress leads perfectly into the second strategy. After thinking through the day's potential challenges, I had to make sure my own cup was full enough to handle them. The world constantly tells us that prioritizing ourselves is selfish, but the Stoics knew it was essential. You can't pour from an empty cup. So, for 15 minutes, before a single email or notification, that time was mine, non-negotiable. Some days it was a light workout, other days it was reading just one page from a philosophy book, and sometimes it was just sitting with a cup of tea and setting a clear intention for the day. This wasn't about pampering myself, it was about strategic readiness. It's about building a solid foundation of inner stability before the world tries to knock you off balance. By the end of the week, this small pocket of time became the most important part of my day. It was my way of declaring that my own peace and focus were valuable and worth protecting. It taught me that the first victory of the day is the one you win over distraction. Think about it. How often do you give the first moments of your day away to someone else's agenda? The body as ally, embracing physical discipline. The Stoics didn't see the mind and body as separate things in conflict. They were allies. The third strategy was to treat physical exercise not as a chore, but as a way to train the soul. They had a word for this kind of discipline: ascesis. Now, this term means training or practice in a broad sense, not just exercise, but I applied it to getting my body moving. Seneca advocated for short, simple workouts to keep the body sharp, understanding that a disciplined body helps build a disciplined mind. My commitment was simple: 30 minutes of physical activity every single day, no excuses. On Tuesday, I was exhausted. My mind came up with a dozen brilliant reasons to skip my workout, but then I remembered the point of this. It wasn't about a fitness goal, it was about building character. It was about choosing the harder, better path. Pushing through that feeling of, I don't want to, was a direct conversation with my own weakness. And each time I finished, it felt like more than a physical win. It was a vote for the person I was trying to become. It proved to me that I'm not a slave to my fleeting moods. The Stoics knew that voluntary hardship in the gym prepares you for the involuntary hardships of life. It's in that strain that you prove to yourself you can endure. The day in review, MPR, the evening examination. The day ends just as it begins, with a moment of reflection. This fourth strategy, a favorite of Seneca's, is the practice of an evening review. Before bed, I'd sit down and do an honest audit of my day, with myself as the judge. I asked 3 simple questions, inspired by Seneca's own routine. What did I do wrong today? What did I do right? And where can I improve tomorrow? This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about becoming more self-aware. On Monday, I realized I'd been a bit short-tempered in a meeting. I didn't dwell on it. I just acknowledged it and resolved to be more patient the next day. On Thursday, I noted I'd handled a stressful moment with calm, reinforcing that positive behavior. As Seneca put it, I examine the whole of my day and retrace my actions and words. I hide nothing from myself, pass over nothing. This daily check-in closes the loop. It makes sure that every day, good or bad, becomes a lesson. It turns the raw data of your life into wisdom. Without this, we're all just doomed to repeat our mistakes. With it, every single day is a step forward. The daily dialogue, raiding the masters. To keep these principles top of mind, my 5th strategy was to spend at least 10 minutes every day reading directly from the Stoic masters, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. And this wasn't just passive reading. It was like having an active conversation with some of the greatest minds in history. I wasn't just consuming words, I was seeking advice. One day, feeling frustrated with the people around me, I opened Marcus Aurelius and read, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't meant to be cynical. It was incredibly practical. It was a reminder not to be surprised by how people can be, and to meet them with my own unshakable calm. This practice is like having a team of the world's best mentors on call. When you feel lost, their words can be a map. When you feel weak, their thoughts offer strength. This daily habit ensures the philosophy doesn't just stay an interesting idea, but becomes a real, integrated part of your thinking. It's the difference between knowing the path and actually walking it. By the end of the week, I found myself recalling their wisdom in real time, right when I needed it most. Their philosophy became a lens that helped me see the world with so much more clarity. The watchful guardian, practicing prosoche. Strategy number 6 is maybe the most important of all, the practice of prosoche. It's a Greek term for a state of continuous, vigilant, and mindful attention. It's about being the watchful guardian of your own mind. Throughout the week, my goal was to bring this awareness to everything I did. When I was working, I was just working. When I was listening to someone, I was fully present. And when I felt a wave of anger or anxiety coming on, I didn't just react. I would pause, notice the feeling, and ask myself where it was coming from. Epictetus taught that we should constantly monitor our judgments to make sure they align with our values. This was tough, I won't lie. My mind, so used to constant distraction, really pushed back. But with practice, something incredible started to happen. I began to catch my negative thought patterns before they could spiral out of control. I noticed the small moments of beauty I would have otherwise missed. Prosoche is like turning on the lights in a dark room. You start to see the machinery of your own mind, your habits, your triggers, your automatic reactions. And once you can see them, you can start to change them. This is the art of living deliberately, instead of just running on autopilot. The upward turn, the power of a smile. This next strategy sounds almost too simple, but its effect was surprisingly powerful. Consciously choosing to smile. This isn't about faking happiness or suppressing real sadness. It's about understanding that our body can influence our mind. It's a physical way of asserting the Stoic idea that while you don't control what happens, you always control your response. One stressful afternoon, I felt that familiar tension building in my shoulders. Instead of giving in to it, I just paused, took a deep breath, and smiled. It felt a little silly at first, but it sent a signal to my brain to break the stress cycle. It was a small act of defiance against that creeping negativity. The Stoics encouraged finding cheerfulness even in tough times, not for others, but for ourselves. A smile became a tool, a way to reset my emotional state, to choose calm over chaos. This small physical shift often created just enough mental space to think more clearly and act more rationally. It proves that even the smallest actions, when done with intention, can make a real difference in our mindset. The true north, setting your course. In a world that's constantly telling you who to be and what to want, the eighth strategy is to stand firm in your own values. It's about getting crystal clear on your own personal philosophy and using it as a compass. At the start of the week, I took some time and wrote down my core values: integrity, discipline, kindness, tranquility. For the rest of the week, every big decision got filtered through that list. When I had a choice to make, I'd ask myself, does this align with my true north? This is all about building what the Stoics called an inner citadel, a fortress of conviction that can't be touched by outside pressure or other people's opinions. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This strategy is the embodiment of that advice. It forced me to be honest about my own motivations. It made saying no to things that didn't serve my purpose so much easier. Standing firm in your values isn't always the popular choice, but it's the only path to real self-respect and peace. It's the ultimate act of governing yourself. Do you know what your core values are? And are you truly living by them? 5. The resilient mind, nurturing wit and humor. A common myth about the Stoics is that they were all doom and gloom. Nothing could be further from the truth. The ninth strategy I tried was to actively nurture a sense of humor, especially the ability to laugh at myself. The Stoics understood that humor is a powerful tool for perspective. It helps you create distance from a problem and see it not as some huge catastrophe, but as a manageable and sometimes even funny event. Seneca even suggested it's more fitting for a man to laugh at life than to lament over it. One day, I made a clumsy mistake during a big presentation. My first reaction was that hot flush of embarrassment, but then I remembered this principle. I paused, made a light-hearted joke at my own expense, and just moved on. Instantly, the tension in the room vanished. More importantly, the tension inside me vanished. Laughter is a form of resilience. It's a declaration that your peace of mind is more important than your ego. It turns potential moments of stress into moments of lightness. Can you find the humor in your own imperfections? The sovereign state, AM, respect and boundaries. The 10th strategy is about two sides of the same coin, showing universal respect to others while holding firm personal boundaries. The Stoics believed we are all connected, that there's a shared reason in every person. So throughout the week, I made a conscious effort to treat every single person from the CEO to the mail carrier with the same level of calm, dignified respect. This meant listening more and reacting less, especially when I disagreed with someone. But the other side of that coin is respecting yourself enough to have clear boundaries. This meant learning to say no without feeling guilty. It meant protecting my time and energy from things that were draining and pointless. I learned to communicate my boundaries calmly but firmly. For instance, I set specific times to check email and let my team know, which protected my time for deep work. As Epictetus reminds us, our main duty is to what is in our control. Your time, your energy, and your peace of mind are your territory. Protecting them isn't selfish, it's what allows you to offer the best version of yourself to the world. Section 11. The sacred space, cutting out the negative. The final strategy I put into practice was maybe the most cleansing, actively cutting out negative energy. The Stoics taught that we are deeply shaped by the people and the information we surround ourselves with. So this week, I took a ruthless inventory. I unfollowed social media accounts that just sparked envy or anger. I politely excused myself from conversations that devolved into gossip or complaining. I started to notice my own negative thought patterns and consciously chose to replace them with more rational, constructive ones. This isn't about living in a fake bubble of positivity. It's about being a vigilant gatekeeper for your mind. It's about recognizing that your attention is your most valuable asset, and you shouldn't waste it on things that drag you down. Seneca warned against spending time with people who might pass their own flaws onto us. I chose to fill that reclaimed mental space with better things: uplifting books, conversations with supportive friends, and time in nature. The effect was like decluttering a messy room. My mind felt clearer, lighter, and more focused. I was no longer being passively polluted by negativity. I was actively creating an environment that helped me grow. This one-week experiment was a powerful reminder that we have so much more influence over our inner world than we think. If any of these strategies resonated with you, and if you're ready to start building your own inner fortress, consider subscribing and liking this video so more people can find this timeless wisdom. I'm genuinely curious, which of these strategies are you going to try first? Let me know in the comments below. Your journey really does inspire all of us. Conclusion. So, what was the final result of my one-week Stoic challenge? Did I become some perfect, unshakable sage? Of course not. But that was never the goal. The change was quieter, but so much deeper than that. The chaos of the outside world didn't change. The deadlines still came, frustrations still popped up, and people were still people. What changed was the space between the event and my response. That space, which used to be a hair-trigger reaction, had expanded. It became a moment of conscious choice, a place where I could check in with my values and choose reason over reflex. The week started as an experiment, but it ended as a revelation. I realized Stoicism isn't some passive philosophy to just admire. It's an active discipline you have to practice every single day. It's a training program for the mind, I didn't get rid of negative emotions, but I learned to see them as messengers, not my masters. I didn't become invincible, but I found a deep well of resilience I never knew I had. I learned that real freedom isn't about having a perfect, problem-free life. It's about having the inner tools to handle any life with grace and strength. I didn't become a different person, but I became the best version of myself more often. I found the tools to build my own inner citadel, brick by daily brick. And that, I've learned, is a power no one can ever take away.